I stopped to catch my breath, and when I turned my flashlight back toward the trail, it was gone. The path I had just walked for the last 20 minutes had completely disappeared behind me. No footprints, no dirt track, no broken brush, just a solid wall of trees, like nobody had ever been there. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't just lost. Something out there was changing the trail after I passed it, and it didn't want me going back. I stood there frozen, trying to make sense of what I was seeing, because I knew exactly where I'd come from. I remembered every bend in that trail, every fallen branch, every marker nailed to the trees. But now there was nothing behind me, except darkness and pine trunks packed so tight it looked like the forest had closed itself shut. Then I heard it, a single footstep behind me, slow, heavy, like someone had stepped exactly where the trail used to be. I spun around so fast I almost dropped my flashlight, but the beam only hit empty woods. And then something worse happened. I heard another step, this time in front of me. My name's Daniel. I was 31. And this happened in a remote section of Yosemite National Park during a volunteer overnight wildlife survey. I'd agreed to help with near the eastern ridge trails, the kind of thing I'd done before without any problems, because most of the job was simple. Walk a marked route, log movement, check remote trail cameras, and radio in anything unusual. But that night the forest stopped feeling like a place and started feeling like something alive. Earlier that evening, everything had been normal: cold air, quiet trees, the occasional sound of branches shifting in the wind, nothing more than what you'd expect in a national park after sunset. And I remember feeling stupid later for how normal it all seemed at first. Because the first sign that something was wrong was so small I almost ignored it. One of the trail markers was facing the wrong direction. It was one of those reflective arrows bolted to a post, and I was sure it had pointed north when I passed it 10 minutes earlier, but now it was turned toward me, as if someone had physically twisted it around after I walked by. I stood there staring at it longer than I should have, trying to convince myself I'd remembered it wrong. Maybe exhaustion, maybe low light, maybe my brain filling in details that weren't there. But then my radio crackled on my shoulder, and before I could even touch it, I heard my own voice whisper through the speaker, "Don't stop walking." I ripped the radio off my vest and stared at it, because no one else was assigned my channel, and I definitely hadn't spoken. I clicked the transmit button and called dispatch, trying to keep my voice steady. But all I got back was static, then a pause, and then my own breathing, coming through the speaker, slow and uneven, like someone else was holding the radio to their mouth and standing just close enough to hear me panic. That's when I noticed something worse. The camera bag on my shoulder suddenly felt lighter. I looked down, and one of the trail cameras I'd collected earlier was gone. The zipper was still closed, but the camera was missing. I stopped and opened the bag completely, dumping everything onto the dirt to make sure I wasn't imagining it. But it was gone, and I knew I hadn't dropped it because I would have heard it hit the ground. Then my flashlight caught something hanging from a tree branch about 20 feet ahead. The missing camera, swinging gently in the dark. I just stood there, staring at it because there was no way it could have gotten there without someone taking it from my bag and placing it there while I was walking. And if someone had done that, they had been close enough to touch me without me noticing. I should have turned around right then, but when I looked back, the trail was gone again. Completely different. The trees behind me looked denser now, wrong somehow, like the entire forest had shifted while I wasn't looking. I tried my phone next, hoping for GPS, but the map kept spinning in circles, my location jumping farther into the forest every few seconds, showing me moving even though I was standing still. And then it happened again. The radio came alive. "You missed the turn," my voice said, calm, almost amused. "You already walked past it." I remember saying out loud, "Who the hell is this?" and immediately hating that I asked, because the answer came back so fast it felt like it had been waiting. You. The woods went dead silent after that. No insects, no wind, nothing. And in a place like that, silence is worse than noise, because it means every living thing around you has noticed something before you have. I grabbed my gear and started moving faster, not running yet, just trying to keep control, following what looked like the main path downhill toward the ranger access road. But every few minutes I'd glance behind me, and the trail would be different. Rocks where there hadn't been rocks, fallen branches moved, a split in the path that hadn't existed seconds earlier, like the forest was quietly rewriting itself while my back was turned. And then I saw the pounded on the door and shouted for anyone inside, but there was no answer. Then through the dusty window beside the door, my flashlight swept across the desk inside, and I saw the security monitor glowing in the dark, showing the trail behind the cabin, and on that screen, I saw myself, standing in the woods, watching me pound on the door. Same clothes, same light, same face, completely still. I stumbled backwards so hard I almost fell off the steps, because the version of me on that monitor slowly lifted its radio to its mouth, and the radio on my shoulder crackled instantly. You were supposed to stay on the street. Trail. I ran before I even thought about it, around the side of the building, down toward the parking area, and somehow my truck was still there, keys still in my pocket, and I don't remember getting in. I just remember the engine starting, and gravel spraying as I tore out of there like something was right behind me. Maybe it was. I didn't stop until I reached the main road with other cars and actual headlights and people and noise, things that felt normal again. I filed a report the next morning, and the senior ranger looked at me like I hadn't slept in days. But then he checked the station logs, and that's when his face changed. Because according to the motion sensors at that maintenance cabin, someone had been standing outside the window for 17 minutes before I ever arrived there. And the footage only showed one person the entire time, me, standing in the trees, watching the front door, while another me ran toward the building from the trail. I quit 2 weeks later, packed up and left. And for a while, I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, darkness, anything my brain could use to make it feel rational. Until 3 months later, when I was unpacking my gear at home and found one last trail camera buried in the bottom of my bag, the one that had disappeared. I don't remember bringing it back, but I checked the memory card anyway, and the final image on it was taken deep in the woods at 2:14 a.m., after I had already driven out of the park. And in that photo, someone wearing my face was standing on the trail, looking straight into the lens, while behind him, I was still running.